Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Questions asked of J.D. Vance over the weekend that the D.C. press corps not terribly interested in during the 4 years of Joe Biden's tenure. Hey, when are prices going to come down? Marg Brennan, we have so much to get to chick, asked J.D. Vance that very question, this is a snap of a fingers type thing. You promised, now you're in for 5 minutes. When are prices going to come down? He had to explain the basis of inflation to Miss Brennan.
Things you experience at the grocery store, what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course. of course.
Those things. When do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel's way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers, and that is what we're trying to fight for.
Oh, interesting. Inputs, the regulatory environment, these things matter in business. What a revelation, at least it was to Margaret Brennan. Something else, too. This was classic Trump. I wanted to get Chris Whalen's take on this.
Which thing?
Trump asked about his relationship with the Fed. You know, he wants interest rates to come down. He wants the cost of capital to be lower. And but the D.C. press corps is always concerned about Trump dictating to the Fed. The Fed's an independent body. You're not going to tell Jay Powell his what twos and where to fours, are you?
The interest rates will come down.
You said that you would demand that the interest rates come down.
Well, I would put in a strong statement.
Do you expect the Fed to listen to you?
Yeah.
And the smirk on his face, like, yeah. I think we're pretty locked in.
Yeah.
It was
I think
great.
they'll listen to me. Christopher Whalen's an investment banker and chairman of Whalen Global Advisors. He's also the author of Ford Men from Inspiration to Enterprise and editor of the Institutional Risk Analyst. Yeah, the Fed's going to listen to me, Chris.
They will. It's very difficult for a Fed chairman to function without the support of the White House and the Treasury. This is a practical matter. So there's a lot of posturing going on right now. But, Trump is right. His visceral instinct is that rates are too high, and he knows this because he can see what's going on in commercial real estate. You guys can see it in Chicago there, up close and personal. And, we have a huge problem. We published a comment yesterday in the blog that shows the amount of money that banks have reported as income, but they haven't collected yet. It's $100 billion. That's 2 quarters worth of earnings for the whole industry. And what that is forbearance. People can't pay. And so what the banks are saying is keep the building. We're going to lower your loan payment. Or, with Signature Bank here in New York, we went interest only for a lot of these deals. And they don't want the building. So they'll keep lowering the payment until, they can't anymore. But there's a huge iceberg out there coming. And I worry about Trump because I don't know how much time he has before we have to start dealing with this. The Fed's wreckage from lowering rates and then raising rates 5.5 points, that's how Trump should be attacking the Fed. Mismanagement, stupidity, right?
Well, we've been talking about this commercial real estate bubble for quite a time now, particularly when you have main retail drags in big cities like Michigan Avenue that have historically pretty close to historically high non-occupancy rates. And but I also maybe it was conversation with you, maybe with somebody else, but I also took it to in these conversations in the last year and a half that, at the end of the day, banks and commercial real estate interests are going to work these things out, and you'll see some bankruptcies, and it'll be somewhat of a hit, but in the overall scheme of things, it's not going to be terribly impactful. You're changing your was that your tune previously, and now you're changing it?
No, it's just that the reported numbers for the banks, who only like to do business with affluent people, remember, they're not horrible. But when you look at the bottom third of the U.S. economy, you look at the FHA market for first-time and low-income families. If you look at commercial real estate loans that have been sold in the bonds, okay, there is a festering mess out there. And it's not mostly consumer, mostly it's commercial. You don't hear about it because lawyers are sitting in a conference room somewhere arguing with each other. They don't come out in the public and talk about it. So there is a huge problem there. And I think Trump knows this. He's been in the business long enough to understand that commercial real estate does not function well in a deflationary environment. If you don't have at least 2% inflation every year, you have a problem.
Yeah, but I mean, give us a sense of what you're talking about. This is a big problem. I mean, in a worst case and a best case scenario, what happens?
Worst case scenario is you start to see endowments and pension funds and others who invested directly in commercial real estate having to fess up some really big losses. You're going to see some banks take some really outsized hits because they are forbearing right now. They're pretending. When they can't pretend anymore, then all of a sudden they've got to report the loss. And you see this all across the board in commercial real estate. There's so much extend and pretend, as we like to call it in finance, in commercial real estate today, that I don't think people realize the magnitude. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in losses coming at the U.S. economy. And sure, these are, real estate developers. Who cares, right? No, it does trickle down. And it's going to impact a lot of different parts of society. There are hundreds of small credit unions and banks out there that are insolvent. And the FDIC and the National Credit Union Association don't have the cash to resolve them because they can't sell them. When you have dead banks, as we had in 2008, the Fed dropped interest rates, right? It's easy to sell assets when you have loss sharing with the FDIC and interest rates are falling. Right now, we've got the Fed trying to prove that they are, tougher than Donald Trump. So they're saying, oh, well, we don't have to cut now. Yeah, you do. See, the Fed doesn't realize how close to the edge we are in terms of liquidity in the money markets and also this problem I just described.
So, really pedestrian question. A lot of people are asking, and the Democrats are harping on, egg prices are still too high. When are we going to see any relief in the grocery store? I mean, they're, ripping on Trump because he's focusing, they claim, on Greenland instead of the economy.
Well, look, what Vance said about energy prices is a big part of it. I think also vendors during COVID took the opportunity to raise prices. And frankly, they are getting back what they gave away earlier in terms of inflation of their own production costs. Making eggs, believe it or not, is not a high-margin business. It's a break-even business for a lot of producers, depending on the ebb and flow of prices, right? So, yeah, they made money for a few months, but it's a vicious cycle because their costs keep going up. That's why Vance and Trump are so focused on energy. It's the biggest thing that they can change that will impact inflation, Amy. The other factors are much smaller. Energy is huge. And then what's the other big factor in trucking, for example? People. Those are the two factors you have.
I wanted to get your take on the hammering that the Nasdaq took yesterday, since the whole thing is predicated on the performance of NVIDIA. Here's Alexander Alexander Wang is one of these geniuses, MIT dropout who founded Scale AI. I think he's like the youngest billionaire on record. He was talking about this during Davos on CNBC about DeepSeek, the Chinese Chicom AI company, and the kind of capacity that they had that maybe the AI companies and sort of the West in general didn't appreciate. Take a listen.
The Chinese labs, they have more H100s than people think. And these are the highest powered NVIDIA chips that they were not supposed to have. Yes. My understanding is that DeepSeek has about 50,000 H100s, which they can't talk about, obviously, because it is against the export controls that the United States has put in place. And I think it is true that, I think they have more chips than other people expect, but also on a go-forward basis, they are going to be limited by the chip controls and the export controls that we have in place.
Well, right now, the sort of shocked the space with their rollout of their new R1 model, which has this sort of computing power that OpenAI and other players have, but a fraction of the cost to develop. And this was what sent the market reeling yesterday.
And they published their model. So they threw down the gauntlet to these USAI shops and said, come on, show us the goods. I find this all very amusing. You know, I rode NVIDIA up to over $1,000 before the split, and I got off because it made no sense. But having worked in the technology sphere, and I know a lot of people who in that space, I am not impressed by AI. I think it's just the latest fad. You know, computers compute and they sort. These are the two things that they do. What has AI discovered for us? Well, it is really good at coming up with fantastic scenarios that nobody else would ever think of, and it's really good at being mediocre. You know, use Google Docs and use their grammar tool, the little bot that's supposed to help you write. No, it doesn't work at all. and the averaging and the surveying of data using all this horsepower, right? What is it getting us? What are we getting at the end of the day? Better customer service so I could fire a few more low-wage people at Bank of America? Nah.
No, but I mean,
not productivity.
But the degenerative writing piece is interesting. I've been looking online about this, and some people were comparing and contrasting because these are language models at this stage of development. That's what they are. So it's not, you know, it's not this brave new world quite yet. But you know, but this is ongoing. But the language performance of DeepSeek's R1 model. Much better than some of the ChatGPT, the Claude, and so forth. So you know, it's just this ongoing evolution, and you're measuring it against the offerings from some of these other companies, and you know, in addition to, you know, the firepower behind it. Now, one of the other things with this language model is you're not allowed to criticize President Xi. No surprise there. But I mean, you know, all of them have their problems too in terms of their blind spots based on their politics. So I guess my point is to say that if you had Trump do that big announcement with Ellison and Masa-san and Sam Altman the other day, and we're supposed to be in this AI arms race with the Chi-Coms, and I'm just and you think it's like all a phony baloney race, or you just think that it's not as you know, sort of existential at this point as it's being advertised to be?
It's the latest thing. You know, there's always got to be a thing that everybody's fixated on. Remember blockchain? You know, before that, we have had various other things. And I just view it as part of the marketing culture in the West. It's also shared by the Chinese firms to the extent that they are facing the markets. But, you know, to me, it's just human nature. We see the shiny object, we chase it. That's it. People, you know, hype a stock like NVIDIA. I'm very grateful, by the way. You know, my return
tenfold, yeah, I would think you would be.
But I've learned over the years as an analyst that you look for the crowd, and you don't question why the crowd is there. You just know that there will be a crowd. So let me give you a great example. SoFi reported earnings yesterday, kind of fintech bank, right? They haven't been profitable till about a year ago. And the increase in the valuation was astronomical because they weren't profitable. Now that they're reporting earnings, boring, okay? So they reported good earnings yesterday. The stock tanked 10%. It's an impressive-looking chart. It's like, you know, when you push something off the edge of the table, whoa! And they had a good quarter. So this is the strange world we live in. The future, the promise of something down the road is much more appealing than reality.
That's a pretty good commentary on human nature. I wanted to get one more of your hot takes here. Scott Bessent confirmed as Treasury Secretary. We haven't talked since he was leveled up and obviously confirmed. What's your handle on him and how important he will be in terms of advising and policymaking?
Well, like Steve Mnuchin in Trump 1, Mr. Bessent is going to have to be the adult in the room. You know, Treasury is the most important agency in the government. Also, the professional staff at Treasury are very important, and I hope that Trump doesn't start attacking them because then the government will stop working. Now, Bessent has an affable manner, you know, South Carolina gentleman. He was asked if we were going to default on the debt. He said no, which was the right answer, of course. But he's got a lot of things on his plate. Just getting control of the deficit, just slowing the growth, number one, will help rates fall. Then the Fed can say, oh, okay, we can help you out. But if they're not sure what the administration's going to do on the fiscal side, then there's no reason for the Fed to act. So in a sense, that interest rate question is in Trump's hands. If he and Bessent and, Elon Musk and all the rest of them can make progress on the deficit, start pushing it down, maybe show some leadership on revenue, which we don't like to talk about, then I think rates will fall. Because, there's so much cash sloshing around, you wouldn't believe it. Even with all the defaults I described to you before, people are still reinvesting in real estate. You can't tell them not to. Here in New York, for God's sake, it's hardly better than Chicago. Why would people put more new capital into multifamily in New York City so they could be rent regulated? Makes no sense at all. Condos? Yes. Rentals? No. But the rentals are raising money. Look at the Real Deal this morning.
First thing Bessent has to do, of course, is clean out all those mustache combs from his desk left behind by Janet Yellen.
Listen, he is the adult in the room, along with the chief of staff in the White House, who has conducted a brilliant, transition. No leaks, no public fussing. I'm very impressed with this lady. Those are the two people who are going to keep Donald under control, if anyone can.
Chris Whalen, investment banker, chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, author of Ford Men from Inspiration to Enterprise, and editor for the Institutional Risk Analyst, if you want more of his expert insights. Chris Whalen, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Have a great day, guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
While Dennis Prager is recuperating, we know you miss your daily dose of Dennis. That's why Pragertopia is giving you a special gift. Right now, Pragertopia members can hear the best 2 hours of Dennis's favorite segment.